Hello ARMY, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome, because today we are covering a story that moved incredibly fast across social media over the last 24 hours, and that touches on something that goes beyond just a trending hashtag. We are talking about WhereIsJimin. We are talking about why that specific phrase started trending simultaneously across Korea, Mexico, and globally. We are talking about what triggered it, what ARMY did in response, and what the whole moment ultimately says about the relationship between Jimin, his fans, and the way that community shows up for the people they love. So let's get into the full story, because there is a lot to unpack here and it deserves to be told carefully and completely. Let me start by laying out exactly what happened, because the sequence of events matters for understanding the full picture. BTS made an official visit to Mexico's National Palace, a genuinely historic diplomatic occasion that we have discussed in detail in a recent video. The visit was significant, the reception was warm, and the images from that occasion captured a moment that speaks to the extraordinary cultural reach that BTS has achieved. 7 members of the world's biggest musical act being received at one of Mexico's most historically and architecturally significant official buildings. It is the kind of event that generates substantial media coverage and substantial social media attention, both in Korea and in Mexico and among ARMY globally. In the aftermath of that visit, multiple official and media sources published photographs from the occasion. And it was in looking at those photographs that ARMY noticed something. Specifically, fans noticed that certain photographs being published and circulated, including photographs from official sources, did not include Jimin, or did not adequately represent his presence at the event. The Korean media outlet Dispatch, which is one of the most prominent and most widely followed entertainment news sources in South Korea, published coverage of the Mexico National Palace visit that ARMY felt did not give Jimin appropriate visibility. And separately, posts on official social media channels related to the visit were also observed to not include Jimin in certain images. The response from ARMY was immediate and it was organized. The hashtag WhereIsJimin began circulating first among Korean fans and Mexican fans, 2 of the most active and most vocal ARMY communities globally, and then spread rapidly across the global fanbase. Within hours it was trending across multiple platforms, with fans from countries all over the world adding their voices to what had started as a localized observation and become a coordinated global expression of support for Jimin and a request for his proper representation in the documentation of this historic event. Now I want to be clear about what WhereIsJimin was and what it was not, because framing matters enormously in a situation like this. WhereIsJimin was not an attack. It was not a campaign of hostility directed at any specific person or organization. It was not a demand for anyone to be punished or cancelled or publicly shamed. It was a question, a simple, direct, collectively voiced question from a community of fans who had noticed something and wanted it to be addressed. Where is Jimin? He was there. He was part of this historic occasion. His presence deserves to be represented. These are not unreasonable things to want, and the hashtag expressed them in exactly those terms. The specific dimension of this story that involved the Mexican president's social media is worth discussing carefully, because it is one of the more unusual and more interesting aspects of what happened. ARMY noticed that certain official posts from Mexican government's social media accounts related to the National Palace visit did not feature Jimin in the photographs used. Mexican ARMY, who are, as we have discussed in previous videos, one of the most passionate and most organized fan communities in the entire global ARMY network, responded by making a polite and respectful request. They asked for the photos to be reposted with Jimin included, framing the request as a matter of respect for a member of the visiting group whose presence deserved to be acknowledged. This request was made with the specific cultural awareness and the specific combination of passion and courtesy that characterizes Mexican ARMY at their best. It is worth pausing here to appreciate what is actually happening in this specific dynamic, because it is genuinely remarkable when you think about it. ARMY fans in Mexico are reaching out to their own government's social media channels to advocate for the proper representation of a Korean artist who visited their country. The scale of that advocacy, the fact that fans felt empowered to make that request, the fact that they did so respectfully and with genuine cultural consciousness, the fact that the request resonated widely enough to become part of a global trending conversation, speaks to something profound about the relationship between BTS and their international fanbase that goes far beyond what typical celebrity fan relationships look like. Let's talk about the dispatch dimension of this story, because it adds a layer of context that is important for understanding the full scope of what ARMY was responding to. Dispatch is a media outlet that has a complex and long-standing history with BTS and with the broader K-pop community. It is known for its extensive photo coverage of entertainment events and for its investigative reporting on celebrity matters. Among ARMY, Dispatch has a complicated reputation. There are moments when its coverage has been appreciated and moments when it has generated significant frustration. The specific concern in this instance was that in covering the Mexico National Palace visit, Dispatch published photographs and content that did not give Jimin visibility equivalent to his fellow members, and that this omission in an official media context was something that needed to be called out. ARMY's response to this was characteristically organized. Rather than simply expressing frustration, the community shared specific screenshots, documented the specific photographs and coverage in question, and clearly articulated what was missing and why it mattered. This is one of the things that makes ARMY such an effective advocacy community when they mobilize around an issue, the combination of genuine passion with the kind of clear, evidence-based communication that makes the concern legible to people outside the immediate fan community. Now let's zoom out and think about what this moment means in the larger context of Jimin's 2026 and of the broader story of his place in BTS and in the global cultural conversation. Because Where Is Jimin did not emerge in a vacuum. It emerged in the context of a community that has been paying close and loving attention to Jimin throughout the entirety of the Arirang era, that has been celebrating every recognition and achievement, the legendary stage entrance lists, the International Dance Day honors, the Times Square recognitions, the VK trending posts, and that has also been alert to moments where that recognition falls short of what his actual presence and contribution deserve. The passion behind Where Is Jimin is directly proportional to the depth of ARMY's engagement with Jimin's journey. These are fans who watched him perform at Gwangwonmun and felt the full force of what his return from military service meant. These are fans who have been following every concert stop of the Arirang tour and documenting every extraordinary moment, every legendary entrance, every chaotic stage interaction with Jungkook, every new nickname earned in every new city. These are fans who know the full scope and the full significance of what Jimin brings to BTS and to every occasion he is part of. And when documentation of a historic occasion does not adequately reflect that presence, the response is not just disappointment. It is a mobilization, because this community has both the motivation and the organizational capacity to make noise about things that matter to them. Let's also talk about the specific power dynamic involved in ARMY using social media to advocate for proper representation of their favorite artists, because this is something that has been developing and becoming more sophisticated over the entire course of BTS's career and that the Where Is Jimin moment represents in a particularly clear way. In the early days of K-pop's international expansion, the relationship between fanbases and media coverage was relatively passive. Fans consumed what media produced and had limited ability to influence what got covered or how it got framed. Social media changed that dynamic fundamentally. Platforms like X, formerly Twitter, gave fans the ability to organize at scale, to coordinate their messaging, to create trending topics that forced visibility for issues that might otherwise go unnoticed, and to directly address media outlets and official accounts in ways that earlier generations of fans simply could not. ARMY has become one of the most sophisticated practitioners of this kind of organized fan advocacy. The combination of global-scale, multilingual communication, clear and specific messaging, and the consistent framing of advocacy in terms of respect and proper recognition rather than in terms of hostility and attack has made ARMY campaigns both effective and relatively resilient to dismissal. Where Is Jimin fits this pattern exactly. It is specific, not a vague expression of dissatisfaction but a precise and documentable observation about the absence of Jimin from certain photographs. It is respectful, framed as a request for proper inclusion rather than as an accusation. And it is globally coordinated, Korean and Mexican fans leading it, global fans amplifying it, the hashtag reaching trending status on multiple platforms simultaneously. There is also something worth saying about the specific relationship between ARMY and the concept of collective memory and documentation. BTS's career has been documented by ARMY in extraordinary detail from almost the very beginning: fan cam footage, concert recordings, behind-the-scenes moments, interview compilations, timeline projects that chart the group's development across years. This documentation culture is partly about love and partly about something more serious, a recognition that the story of BTS, in all of its fullness and complexity, deserves to be told accurately and completely. When official media documentation falls short of that standard, when a historic occasion is covered in a way that does not give full visibility to all 7 members, ARMY treats it as a gap in the record that needs to be filled. WhereIsJimin is, in that context, a documentation advocacy campaign as much as it is a fan support campaign. It is the community saying, the record of this event needs to include Jimin, because his presence there was real and significant and deserves to be captured and preserved as fully as the presence of every other member. That framing, thinking of the hashtag not just as emotional support but as historical advocacy, elevates what might otherwise be dismissed as fan drama into something that is actually about the integrity of how significant cultural moments get recorded and remembered. Let's think about what the global trending of WhereIsJimin tells us about the current state of ARMY as a community and about Jimin's place within it. There is a very specific quality to how ARMY mobilizes around Jimin in particular that is worth noting. Jimin has, throughout BTS's career, inspired a particularly intense and particularly protective kind of fan devotion, not just appreciation for his artistry, but a genuine and deeply felt investment in his well-being, his recognition, and his proper place in the story of BTS. This protectiveness has historical roots in moments when Jimin faced criticism or underappreciation in various contexts, and it has been refined over years into a form of organized, intentional advocacy that deploys quickly and effectively when triggered. The speed with which WhereIsJimin went from a local observation to a global trend speaks to how ready that advocacy infrastructure is. Korean fans noticed the issue. Mexican fans were already primed from their deep engagement with BTS's visit to their country. The connection between these two ARMY communities, already strengthened by the shared experience of BTS at Mexico's National Palace, meant that the hashtag had immediate multilingual momentum. And once it reached a certain threshold of visibility, the global ARMY network picked it up and amplified it to the point where it became impossible to ignore. This kind of rapid, cross-cultural, multilingual mobilization is genuinely unprecedented in the history of celebrity fan communities. There have been organized fan campaigns before, and there will be again. But the specific quality of ARMY's global coordination, the way Korean fans and Mexican fans and fans from dozens of other countries can align around a specific issue in hours rather than days, reflects something about the infrastructure and the culture of this community that has been built over many years and that continues to become more sophisticated and more effective with every use. I also want to spend a moment on what this moment means for Mexico specifically, because the Mexican dimension of this story is particularly significant and particularly touching. Mexico has one of the deepest and most long-standing ARMY communities in the Latin American world. Mexican fans were among the first Latin American fans to discover BTS, to advocate for their global recognition, to organize streaming parties and chart campaigns and awareness efforts in the years before the group became universally famous. The relationship between BTS and Mexico is not a recent thing. It is a decade-long story of mutual love and engagement that has been built through consistent effort on both sides. For Mexican ARMY to be at the center of WhereIsJimin, to be among the fans who first noticed the issue, who made the polite and public request to the Mexican president's social media accounts, who helped push the hashtag to global trending status, is a beautiful expression of that long history. They were advocating for Jimin not just as a BTS fan but as people who feel a genuine and specific connection to the relationship between BTS and their country, and who wanted the documentation of this historic occasion to do justice to the full reality of what it represented. The fact that the request to the Mexican president's accounts was framed as a matter of respect is important. Mexican ARMY were not being hostile or demanding. They were extending the same warmth and respect that has always characterized the best expressions of the BTS-Mexico fan relationship, and applying it to a specific situation where they felt that warmth and respect had not been fully reciprocated in the documentation of a historic occasion. That is a mature and sophisticated form of advocacy, and it reflects well on the community that produced it. As we look at the full picture of WhereIsJimin, the trigger, the mobilization, the global trending, the specific communities involved, the respectful but clear framing of the concern, what we see is a community doing what ARMY does at its best. Paying close attention. Noticing when something is missing. Organizing quickly and effectively. Communicating clearly and respectfully. And refusing to let a gap in the documentation of something important go unaddressed. Jimin was in Mexico. He was part of a historic occasion. His presence deserved to be seen and recorded and remembered fully. ARMY saw that it was not, and they said something about it. That is what this community does, and it is one of the things that makes being part of it genuinely meaningful. The story is still developing as of this video, and we will continue to follow any updates. But whatever the specific resolution of this particular situation turns out to be, the WhereIsJimin moment has already added another chapter to the long and ongoing story of how this community advocates for the people it loves, with passion, with organization, with clarity, and with the consistent understanding that proper recognition is not just something nice to have but something that matters and is worth fighting for. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, it genuinely helps the channel reach more people who are following this story. Drop a comment below sharing your reaction to the WhereIsJimin situation. Did you participate in the hashtag? Did you see it trending on your timeline? And what do you think it says about the strength of this community? Subscribe if you have not already, share this with your fellow army, and I will see you in the next one. Purple you all.